Funny Mental Lives. I am here today with a friend of mine, Billy Likitsakos. Welcome, Billy.
Hey, Sonja, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. It's very exciting.
I'm really excited. Kind of nervous too, but you know.
You have no reason to be nervous. This is meant to be just a, a relaxed and kind of easy conversation.
Okay, right.
I think you've had one of those before, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think we've had one of those before.
I think we may have too.
Cool. So I guess, just start with a bit of your history, a bit of your background, and your experience with mental health and stuff like that.
I'm Greek American. I was born in Queens, New York. Both my parents are Greek immigrants.
Oh.
So, but I grew up in Greece. I moved to Greece when I was very young.
Wow.
And I lived there, and then I moved to Paris, France, because my stepfather worked for Citibank, so I lived there for about a total of 8 years with my mom, my stepfather, and my sister Rachel. So.
Oh wow.
Grew up overseas. So.
Wow, that's right. Me too.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That's really fascinating. So I guess that I don't know. I really like that you get to do different cultures, because I always feel like people graduate high school and go straight to university or college.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's a good time to travel, but you've already done that.
Yeah, that's true. I remember meeting with my guidance counselor when I was about to go to college, and our guidance counselor told me and all my classmates to not talk about being from Paris, France, because she felt that it would alienate people who are our future college classmates, because most of them she felt would not have a similar experience.
Right.
And she was kind of right, but that was sort of something that I always remembered.
Well, that's interesting. I feel like it should be a rite of passage. It should be required to travel between high school and college.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Europe, there's a mandatory year that they have to take off between graduating high school and going to college, and they call that a gap year, and they encourage students to just travel.
Do they have that here?
They don't have it here. It's not.
I thought
some Americans do take a year off.
Yeah.
But it's not a required thing. So.
Oh, yeah. I finished high school and then traveled. I traveled to the US actually.
Oh, really?
When I was
Wow.
17. Yeah, I came here for 3 weeks, and then I worked for a couple of years, and then I went to university. And during university, I went to Europe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, my dad's a Dutchman, so I went and visited family in Holland,
okay.
and then went to the UK from there. So
you just went to Holland and
the
UK?
And the UK,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
But I went to Holland for the first time when I was 3.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I asked my mum and dad, and they said it was okay if I went by myself. I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. You're so gullible.
So, let's talk a little bit about your history with mental health and stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess I was always a very shy kid, withdrawn and very quiet, and very private as well. So I kind of had a hard time in junior high school and high school especially, and these hardships continued after they followed me afterwards, until a few years maybe 10 years ago I was having these crippling headaches, and my family was very concerned about me, and they sent me to a doctor, an ophthalmologist. I previously had just gone to opticians.
Explain what an ophthalmologist is.
An ophthalmologist is actually a doctor. He has a medical degree, or he or she has a medical degree and they take a look at the pressure behind your eyes.
Oh, okay.
And my mistake was going to opticians my whole life, and opticians just kept on diagnosing me as having an astigmatism,
right.
Whereas this ophthalmologist discovered that I had a brain tumor, and it was very large. I think the name for it is a neurocytoma, and I had the surgery. I had to have emergency surgery, and luckily it turns out that a neurocytoma is a completely benign brain tumor. It's just surgery afterwards left me very debilitated, and I kind of had to start from scratch and relearn how to do everything again.
So what do you mean by relearn? Like?
Oh, well, I had, I had very severe paresis in my right arm, which is a temporary and reversible muscle weakness, because the tumor was growing in my left ventricle. So it's basically like a crisscross. The left hemisphere of the brain controls the right side of the body, and vice versa. The right hemisphere of the brain controls the right side of the body, left side of the body. So when I awoke from surgery, I couldn't move my right arm, which was very concerning to me because I'm a musician, as you know. So that was very, very concerning.
I find so fascinating about that is that, so we think of, so you had a lot of difficulties in remembering things, and you had to relearn how to remember just basic things, or?
It's interesting. The memories, I've learned recently, I've learned since my surgery that, there's different types of memories. The memories that I made from, working as a musician, I basically was able to retrieve all of those.
Okay.
But I just was very, very unmotivated and very, very depressed, after my surgery, and I didn't really know if I wanted to continue playing music,
So it kind of threw you upside down.
It really turned my life around, turned my life upside down, like you said.
But it was just really fascinating because, so like mental health, having like mental health conditions, people assume it's only with some kind of like abuse or, or chemical imbalance or something like that. But you had a tumor. It's a very different sort of area for, I think, people don't really know about.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I feel like there's a lot of blame too.
In what way?
Well, people sort of like assign the person who's struggling with their mental health, like it's your fault that you're going through this. Like you said, there's a lot of things that substance abuse and just emotional problems.
But with you, it's associated with a physical.
Yeah, it was totally like not my fault at all.
No.
So it just was like something that literally like traveled across the universe and landed on my head. It was like being struck by like an asteroid or some other freak. Accident, like being struck by lightning or something.
Well, I guess no one really assumes that they're going to grow up and grow a tumor.
Yeah,
like it's not really something that people, plan for in their lives. It just kind of happens.
Totally.
I mean, we're all susceptible to it, but it doesn't happen to everybody, luckily.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I guess it's just not the way we usually associate mental health, mental illness and stuff like that. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I was very grateful that I was a musician because that gave me a lot of like cognitive tools that I could exercise and learn to reuse, and that really made my recovery a lot easier.
So you mean because as a musician you got to learn a lot of technical.
Yeah, exactly. Like just
memory,
remembering all the songs that and. Ways to approach improvisation, like using scales and chords and stuff. And also there was a really great jazz guitar player named Pat Martino who had the same thing that I had.
Oh, wow.
And he lost his whole memory and he had to relearn everything, and he relearned it by listening to his own recordings.
Wow.
That was an amazing story, and I feel very lucky because after my surgery I have a friend who actually works on my electric basses, and he works on Pat's guitars too, and he invited me down to hear Pat and to meet him at the Iridium. And I went down and met him because he had told Pat about me, and Pat was like, I have to meet this kid. And so I got to meet Pat Martino, one of my biggest musical heroes, and I got to shake his hand, and he sounded amazing. He regained everything, and he sounds better than ever now.
Wow.
He sounded really phenomenal before, but now he sounds different, He just sounds great.
Well, it changes your life.
Yeah, it changes you, yeah.
Oh, we are in New York City, by the way, just if
you
can hear all those horns beeping. Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
We do not stop traffic. We are not famous people.
Yeah.
Wow. So how long ago did this happen to you, and how long has it sort of taken you to relearn stuff?
Oh, I'm lucky in the sense that I remembered all of the music theory that I knew. It just was a question of getting my muscle memory back, and because my right side was affected by the surgery, I had to do a lot of practicing to just get my right hand pizzicato, which is the plucking of the strings.
Okay.
Just to like get that back up to speed, you know. But everything, I remembered everything. You know, I remembered things better than I did before.
Oh, wow.
I was able to. My memory worked a lot better after the tumor was gone.
Oh, wow.
So I was able to, like, you know, memorize music faster.
But I mean, I just find that really fascinating that where you come from is just such a different place where, you know, it's not just trauma, because there's a lot of, even I think the understanding that trauma causes a lot of this sort of stuff is a relatively new idea, because they go on about chemical imbalance and things like that being the most commonly known thing, you know, born that way. But I think that...
do you mean psychological trauma?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I definitely believe that that really causes a lot of...
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But I think, well, you went through, I mean, it's still a traumatic experience to go through what you went through. I mean,
yeah, it was really tough.
You might not have, what did they say, that there was like a risk involved in the surgery? Or?
Oh yeah, they were like, you know, they basically, my neurosurgeon was a brilliant person, but he was like, basically told my family there's a risk of him like totally like not remembering who he is, or just, you know, losing all his memory, you know.
Yeah,
but luckily that didn't happen.
It changed your life though, by the sounds of it, but for the better than anything
totally
else.
For the better.
Yeah, you got some fun experiences that you might not have had before.
Yeah, totally.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what about other things to do besides playing music? Are there, like, just say from day to day, do you have any experiences where you might feel depressed or something, where you have other things you can do to help you through? Or
well, I've learned that one of the key things to me avoiding, you know, depression is just staying busy.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, as much as I complain about my job, it's necessary, you know, because I'm not the type of person who can just like get up in the morning whenever and, you know, practice for 5 hours and then write a bunch of music. It helps me more if I have to like do something.
A routine.
For a routine, exactly.
Right.
If I have some kind of structure to my days.
So like a deadline kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to be here at this particular time, and
that really helps me.
Right. Fair enough. So routine's really good for you. For me, I'm like, I used to be like that, and then I experienced what it's like to not have routine, and I much prefer that.
Yeah.
I like getting up when I feel like it.
Yeah.
But I also learned though, because my brain runs at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it used to cause me a lot of problems, and it still does from time to time, but I've learned to actually be able to make it focused and clear. And so rather than there being like 1,000,000 thoughts rushing at me at once and getting confused by all of them, I've learned how to pick out the one or two that really mean something to me, and focusing on them and becoming very clear, and it's really helped me a lot to do that.
That's really interesting.
Well, I figured at some point in life, that, like I guess in my late 30s, I realised that this is just the way it's going to be, and I got to like help make it work for me, or it's going to be a real problem. And so I just did that instead. It's not easy, and it still does get me in trouble from time to time. But
yeah, totally.
You know, I'm okay with who I am, you know, so what can you do? If other people have issues, I guess it's their problems.
True.
Because there's a certain kind of structure in how people are supposed to behave in society, and some of us just don't fit into that, which I find I often don't. But, you know, you open your world up to other people who've lived through all this sort of stuff as well, and you find other people who are similar experiences.
You know, that's what I really enjoyed about when I was at Rusk. I had the young person support group, and it was all people my age who had similar traumatic, you know, brain injuries, and we talked about all these type of things. You know, we had 2 psychologists who worked with the group, and they basically directed our conversations. But it was really awesome to be able to just talk to young people who had been through similar things. You know.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference when you're surrounded by people who are understanding.
Oh, yeah.
And other odd people.
That's our family, right?
Do you have any, like, So structure's good. What about things that make you laugh or make you feel good or whatever besides music?
Just everyday things. Like I've just learned, I just learned to avoid having too much caffeine. And since my surgery, I've managed to quit smoking entirely.
Oh, good.
I used to smoke before my surgery, and now I don't anymore. And I'm happy I don't, because smoking is kind of disgusting.
Yeah.
So, and also, reading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I enjoy reading.
What sort of stuff do you like reading?
I just like reading books.
Like what kind of books are they? Fiction, non-fiction, science fiction?
Well, actually, I recently reread a lot of Bret Easton Ellis's books. He wrote American Psycho. And,
oh, okay. You enjoy that sort of stuff too.
Yeah, I didn't reread that one. I read reread The Rules of Attraction.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was really good.
There's
So,
some classics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're the only things worth rereading, I think. The classic books. Otherwise, it's I don't know. I mean, I enjoy doing things like walking a lot, and I guess you do that in your job
exercise, yeah,
too.
It's really great. That I've read that releases serotonin in your brain.
Yeah, and I just think for me, it's good to have a lot of different things to look at along my day. To have other people to observe and other things going on to observe, things outside of my head.
Yeah, that's
really helpful.
It gives you perspective. Yeah.
Right, and that helps with the whole slowing it down and focusing, getting outside of my head. And I enjoy doing little things like playing games on my phone, like Free Cell, and not like those Candy Crush things. I don't do any of those sort of things.
Okay.
Like card games and things like that. That that require focus and strategy and
I see.
Streamlines my thinking, and then I win, and I really enjoy that part. Do you have anything like that? Do you do like jigsaw puzzles, crossword puzzles, or anything like
actually,
that?
my work is a lot like that, because I have to just have to improvise, and I have to go around New York City, and I have to get to different offices.
He's a foot messenger.
Yeah, I work as a foot messenger for an Upper East Side radiology office, and that really helps, because I have to strategize how I'm gonna get to this place, and how close that is to the next place. Right. So it's actually a lot like music, a lot like being an improviser, and it's just
choreographed.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like when you're playing a tune, you understand what key you're in and how the chords function, and you have to like a line to get from chord to chord. So
okay.
It's very similar to my job, which is I have to improvise a route to decide.
Right. Well, I used to be a foot messenger also.
Oh yeah, we ran into each other.
Yeah,
once.
We ran into each other a few times. You imagine how large
Yeah.
New York City is,
Oh,
and we
yeah,
actually
that's so random.
ran into each other, and we worked for different companies, everything. So it was
Yeah.
very random. But so I used to have to find I'd have to know 4 ways to get to one place because.
Oh, okay.
You didn't necessarily pick something up and then drop it off. You had to go pick something up and then maybe pick something else up and then something else and then drop the first thing off. And so I needed to learn, 4 ways to get to one place. And so I found that made it more interesting for me. But once I learned that, I know the subway system really well now, and it just got really boring for me after a while. And I especially didn't like it in the wintertime. It was
it's really hard.
painful.
Really tough in the winter.
I did it once and I was like, never again. So you're braver than I am. I couldn't stand it. But yeah, I find that I do things like that too. They treat life kind of like it's a choreographed performance, and like it's a dance, And it makes life more fun when in your mind you're doing some kind of dance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Instead of
it's one way to think of it,
Yeah, I used to do when I used to have to do things like when I was growing up, doing the dishes and cleaning the benches and the stove tops and all that afterwards. I used to do twirls and use the tea towel like it's conducting and things like that, just to make
really cool.
menial tasks. That I
It's
really didn't want to do, made them more fun and interesting for myself.
It's very, very clever.
Yeah. it just makes life a little bit easier, I think. You know, in that way.
I agree with you.
Yeah, so it's kind of like I was just wondering whether that's kind of what you're talking about.
I guess so, in a way. I never really thought of it that way, but you know, it could be.
Yeah.
It probably is. Yeah.
Wonder, do you have like an aria going on in your head at all during the day, or?
Well, I constantly just thinking about, you know, what I like about my job is that it leaves me a lot of time to like think about, you know, things, which previously was a problem for me, but you know, I've learned, you know, recently to like just I need, if I have a job where my mind is free to like wander, it's not a bad thing, you know.
Right, you can do it constructively.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time actually, you know, mentally practicing music and just,
excellent,
you know, going over things and.
Right, you've learned to focus on what matters and getting better at those things rather than let it wander into places that you don't need it to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, like knowing that it's, you know, accepting that my brain runs a million miles an hour and that if I'm not careful, the thoughts just go all over the place and cause a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
Learning to focus on, you know, things that I care about and what really matter to me, and finding those thoughts in all the, you know, mess. And the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
And you can and to me, it's changed the way I think.
Were you a good student when you were?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I passed high school, but like by the skin of my teeth, I just I winged it or whatever, basically. No, I had a lot of trouble focusing. I would start to write, and then as soon as I heard something over there, I'd be like, what's over there?
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, what's over there?
Yeah, me too. I went to Ithaca College and I went to NYU. By the time I really struggled at Ithaca, I got really bad grades. But by the time I went to NYU, I had sort of figured out how to study.
Oh yeah.
And how to like work around my weaknesses. Plus, I was studying music, so it was very interesting to me. So I graduated from NYU with a 4.0 GPA, and I had a brain tumor while I was while I was at NYU, and I just can't believe that I just breezed through.
You must have loved it that much.
Yeah, I know.
You really
I must have really been in the right place for me. You know, that sort of like, you know, I graduated with a 4.0 GPA, which is, you know, amazing, because my grades at Ithaca College were like, you know, bad by comparison, you know.
Yeah.
So.
No, I don't know how I passed, because I barely studied. I barely did work in class. I also had hearing problems when I guess I was born with hearing problems and wasn't discovered till I was about, you know, I think the first time was discovered when I was 3 years old when we were going to Holland, but I had tubes put in my ears, but no one, when I started school, no one associated with my focus and attention problems with my bad hearing. Like they didn't connect that to each other, and so I was just deemed a bad student because I was naughty because I didn't pay attention. But what would happen is when the teacher would turn their back and start writing on the blackboard, I couldn't hear what they were saying, and so
that's really...
all the other kids would start writing, and I'd be like, I have no idea what's happening. Like, how do they know? When did this happen? And then I would get told off for not paying attention, and I'd be like, it was very confusing and difficult, and no one associated, not once in my entire schooling did anyone ever associate my hearing difficulties with my learning difficulties.
That's right. That's a terrible thing.
Right, and because I was always told that I was a bad student and I misbehaved when I didn't. In my mind, I tried so hard to pay attention. After a while, it sort of weighs on you, and I started to really like think, well, geez, I'm doing everything wrong, and I don't know what I'm doing, and so it would cause me to not care. And so I wanted to graduate, mostly because my older sister never did, so it made me more determined to do it. And so I graduated, but I really put like the minimum effort into doing that. So I wonder how I often wonder how I would have been if I actually, you know.
If you had worked at it.
Yeah. It'd be funny. And then I did performance at university, and it wasn't to get any career or anything, it was to gain some like social skills and try to gain some self-confidence.
So
like that.
You studied acting, or?
Well, performance more, because it was kind of like alternative theatre stuff.
Oh, I see.
So it wasn't really acting per se, but Yeah, it was because by that time I was in my early 20s when I went to university.
Okay.
I travelled and worked and stuff in between high school and university, and I had no real social skills or self-worth or anything because I'd been treated so badly, and I just had no friends, and I hid from people. I was scared of people because I really was getting yelled at all the time, and I had no idea what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
And so I did that to try to help myself.
Sounds familiar.
Skills, it took a lot more work than just going to uni for 3 years. That wasn't going to be sufficient, but it helped. It was a good beginning.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I was trying to do stuff to help myself was a really good step.
Oh yeah, totally. I can totally see that.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years or something like that?
That's.
So it's a kind of considered question. It's like
it's a loaded question. Hopefully, this record that I just recorded with Tony Moreno and Chad McLaughlin, who are two really well-known musicians in New York City, will come out by then.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Urban Travelers.
Okay.
And I have the cover already and stuff. I just have to. The last thing I have to do is publish the music, copyright it, and publish it. That's taking me a little bit of time. Now,
do you write the music as well?
I do. Yeah.
Was it a collaboration between the three of you, or?
No, it was. I just notated everything on charts. I had a guitar part for Chad, and I gave Tony the basically the musical score, and he extrapolated his drum part from that. So it's all stuff I've written. 7 original compositions. I studied composition very seriously at NYU. I studied with Rich Shamaria, who's a great composer, and Bruce Arnold, who's another great composer and jazz musician. And they helped me a lot. And I wrote a lot of music when I was studying with Steve Brown at Ithaca College, and I recorded some of that too. So it's basically 7 tunes from like the past 15 years of my life. Yeah.
So you're like we've got to look out for you, sort of musician. See how you go. Just to like dork it up a little bit more, because we're typical. At least I think I am.
So am I.
No, we're really not.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just let me know when the episode is gonna be
available on YouTube.
On YouTube.
I will let you know when it's available on YouTube.
Thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. It was it's very cathartic to talk about things that are very traumatizing for yourself, which I guess in a lot of ways my surgery was so traumatizing for me, and also my recovery. It helps to talk about those things.
I think it's the most important thing, and it's hopefully it'll get easier and easier to find people to come on and be able to do that and sort of realize the benefits of doing it. So yay!
A lot of mental health is just gaining momentum and keeping momentum moving forward.
Absolutely.
And just learning and acquiring new tools to help you deal with the problems that always come up in life.
Absolutely, and meeting different kinds of people who experience it. I think is really important.
That's so important too.
All right, so thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you next month.